Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of shOPS Talk. Brad Smith, co-founder and CEO of Sonar and founder of Wizard of Ops, joined by my good friend Ben Fuller here, who we'll get into here in a second. We'll talk all things operations. We're going to give it about 30 more seconds, let everybody get in, get comfortable, grab a drink, popcorn, whatever you need to do. We'll get started shortly. Ben's probably going to grab a taco here in a second, so don't mind him. He is a taco connoisseur. If you don't know Ben well enough already, besides Salesforce being the biggest passion of his, he's a taco connoisseur of the best.
I mean, just so we're clear, I'm married with a kid, so that is my top passion. And then like Salesforce comes in after that. But
very true. Baby Fuller and Emily. Sorry about that. Passion number 2. So great. Ready to kick off. Welcome again to shOPS Talk. This is an original Zoom series where we've partnered together not only with Sonar and Wizard of Ops, but also by our great sponsors and best friends over at Salesforce, bringing you live content on all things operations. And we're pleased to have one of the best in the game, Ben Fuller, join us today. As you can tell, this is not a mirage. This is not an optical illusion. We are in person. We were fortunate enough, obviously, last week to have Manas Kaskuri on from CV Insights, a good friend of ours. Couldn't make it up to the greater New York region to hang out with him, but fortunately Ben's here in Atlanta with us, so we put our heads together, 6 feet away, of course, to be able to put this show live and in person. So we're excited to have Ben on. A little bit of my backstory with Ben. We've been good friends for years now. I learn more about Salesforce from him on a daily basis than probably anybody else, but I won't steal his thunder. I'll let him introduce himself as well.
yeah, Ben, Brad gives me a little bit too much credit there. I break more things than most people do, and that's how I find out little quirks and pieces there. Ben Fuller, strategic systems manager at SAS Optics. So they're a fintech company here based in Atlanta. And on the side, I'm one of the co-founders at CloudTrails, a Salesforce consultancy for small businesses.
Absolutely. So again, I've known Ben for a while. Ben was an OG member of Wizard of Ops. I want to say in the top 10 or the first 10. And again, a little bit of the backstory that we always tell folks with Wizard of Ops. It's our organic community for operations leaders and Salesforce ecosystem, really to bounce ideas off each other and learn, collaborate, network. So we're going to do exactly that as well today. One of the reasons we want to have Ben on is as an operations connoisseur himself. He's got an immense background on all things Salesforce and operations, but when we thought about what we wanted to talk about, it's stuff that we need to know as operations leaders. How do we go and build great operations teams? How do we empower our go-to-market teams within our companies to do what they need to do? We had a whole talk track. We had a whole script ready to go about that, but as we were leading up to this, all the questions that were coming through in our shOPS Talk channel on Wizard of Ops, you guys wrote the script for us. So we're going to deviate a little bit, really just kind of go into some of the things that you all want to hear about and really understand how we can help your operations teams grow. So one of the first ones that we came in with was, what are the key functions of a sales operations group? I've got my opinions. I'm going to let Ben lead this off. I think I'll preface all of it, though. A lot of this comes down to what your company looks like, how big y'all are, how big the group is. But what are the key functions?
Yeah, I think the biggest and probably the most important is reporting. Like your key reporting and data integrity. To be honest, are your opportunities coming in correctly? Are you finding all the information? Are your validation rules firing correctly? And then what's that look like? Are you tracking your ACV, your MRR, however you guys want to track it, however you report on it? Are you guys getting the right information you need? And then from there, it's I don't want to say keeping the sales team in line, but it's a little bit of slapping hands and making sure people stop fat fingering fields when they enter information.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think about the key functions of sales ops, you can almost start to break it down into pillars. We were actually just on this morning talking with a good friend of ours, Alex Miller over at Sendoso, working on building out more of his operations team. And one of the candid conversations we were having was, how do we start to divide this by discipline? You and I have talked about this a ton of times. We spoke together at Snowforce out in Utah earlier this year.
3 weeks before COVID.
Yeah, a couple weeks before coronavirus happened. But when we think about these pillars, like we think of reporting and analytics that you touched on, we think about process improvement. You're seeing a big wave of this in the sales enablement space right now. How do we make sure our go-to-market teams have the right information, have the right tracks that they can go down? And obviously, very near and dear to our hearts, systems management. How do we make sure Salesforce, all the other systems in this greater Salesforce ecosystem work cohesively together to make sure that path and that journey is correct?
Yeah, I think if we go back to coronavirus for a second here, I think what you'll see is you're set based on enablement.
Yeah.
I think coronavirus has led to a lot of improvements internally. People now, whether they like it or not, have time to focus on these pieces that, quite frankly, have fallen through the cracks over the last couple of years as you build your company. And, ops is, I don't want to say historically, but traditionally it's the last roll spilled in some places. And now you're seeing where those gaps are as people are trying to fill plug holes in funnels, and operations has provided us that ability to fix those things.
That was a meaningful word slip, by the way, when you said pug instead of plug.
Yeah.
Because Frank's hanging out with us again today. So when we think about that, and again, how we grow and expand these teams, it's a big piece of that. When we look at the system side of it, and we talk about how change management and how we need to collaborate now on the enablement side, now more than ever, outside of you and I, who are 6 feet away on a patio right now, it's hard to get change management and collaboration and teaching and training and enablement done. It's all virtual. So we don't get to jump into a room together, go for 30 minutes and train each other. So now more than ever, enablement's a big component of operations teams. So we'll move into the next question. I love this, and I genuinely, talking with Dan Grossberg earlier this week about it, he's unique that he gets to wear both of these hats. But the question was, what are the differences between sales ops managers and typical sales managers?
I mean, I think it depends where you are in the life cycle of the company too.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of early stage companies that one and the same, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But traditionally, sales ops is the one who's holding sales accountable for, and the Salesforce ecosystem, the opportunities they're entering, their data integrity, again, is a big piece, ensuring that you are collecting the information you need to progress down the client life cycle after a deal is closed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's unique. It's a unique question because at first when you read it, it's like, well, there's a ton of differences between sales operations and a typical sales manager. But to Ben's point, when you peel back this layer real quick and you see how data is telling the story that you need to tell, I think you start to realize why sales operations is so important. Now, do we turn over all of that data and all that insights to the sales team and coach against battle cards and anything for objection handling? Absolutely. But if you don't have data to tell that story, you're not really gonna get too far.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's not been any kind of survey done, but I think we'd be surprised based on the number of ops people who started out in the sales world and just kind of through their career progressed into an ops role from either a frontline seller or something like that.
You're spot on. When we talk with so many of our customers and members of our community, how did you get into operations? Last week we had Manas on, and he was telling us, I used to be a school teacher, and now I'm transitioning into operations. That is amazing to me. And we hear so often the normal talk track of, I was an SDR, I was an AE, maybe a sales manager, and then I got into operations. I fell in love with data. I wanted to be able to tell better stories about why our company is performing the way it is. And so there's a natural segue. Going back to Dan Grossberg, good friend of ours, we talk to him often. Dan's wearing that hat in both places right now at Clyde. And I didn't give him a heads up that I was calling him out, so apologies, Dan, but he knows me well enough that he'll call me out somewhere later, probably on LinkedIn of some sorts. But when you think of Dan, Dan's great at this because he's managing his BDR team. He's also doing a lot of the sales management, but how much of a better sales manager is he now that he's data driven and he's running through the operation courses?
Yeah, well, I think, we talk about that career progression. I mean, Mark Lale is a good friend of ours. He's RevOps guy at Full Story. He started out underneath you as an SDR, right? Before making that transition into being a full-blown ops guy.
It blows my mind sometimes to Mark, and great community member of ours, great friend of ours. For better or for worse, he came to me when he was in sales development at Gather a couple companies ago, and he's like, man, I really love what you're doing. You're solving a lot of big problems on the sales space, and I see why you're doing that on everything operations. How do I learn more about this? It's like, well, let me spin you up a sandbox. I'll give you keys to the castle. You can have some admin access. And I look up at Mark now, still a great friend of ours, more Salesforce certifications than I have fingers and toes, I think. And he's well exceeded what I thought just in the number of years that he's been a Salesforce practitioner. So again, going back to the root of that question, the difference between sales ops managers and the typical sales manager, there's a lot, but also when you think about that Venn diagram, there's a lot of overlap as well.
Definitely.
So this next question, good friend of ours actually here in the greater Atlanta area, Alan Helms asked, I'll kind of be brief on the question, but for those that are in WesOps, jump over to the actual shOPS Talk question. But he was asking so much to a certain degree of how do we start to track some of the customer data that tells this customer journey. We see this all day. We've got new information coming in all day from our website, from different channels. People are pinging us on LinkedIn. People are filling out forms. They're taking demo requests. They're also just picking up the phone sometimes. So we have all these different channels that things are coming through. for him, how do we track the data behind that person as they come in through marketing, whether it be inbound or outbound? When they fill out that information, whether it be first name, last name, email, and title that we talk about often, all the way down to MQL status and SQL status and things like that. And then they recycle. Maybe they don't buy on the first round and they come back in inbound 6 months later. This is the epicenter of what we talk about on operations and how do we keep our data clean. Obviously, I've got some thoughts from the Sonar side of how do we make sure these systems operate correctly. But when you think of the data flow and the customer journey and the data behind the customer journey, what sticks out to you on that?
I mean, I think you have to go back to like, what kind of company are you, right? Are you B2B, B2C? Because I think that has a definite impact on how you're tracking that. For us being B2B, we're looking at an account level, very high level. It's, we are tracking individual conversions based on contacts and who's downloading what and how that impacts the overall conversation and moving the deal forward. But a lot of that goes back to campaigns and campaign members, right? Like that's standard Salesforce functionality to an extent. Sorry, Jen, for the quotes there. But, there's a lot you can do with that and a lot you can track with that. And then it also depends on what kind of mapping tool you're using. Are you using Pardot, HubSpot, Marketo? Me personally, I'm a big fan of ops professionals. I think marketing ops is something that's definitely needed for a company at a certain size to be able to track that and actually build the strategy and track those interactions throughout the whole life cycle.
You're spot on. I think hopefully the folks that are attending that heard that question or saw that in our Shops Talk channel aren't going to be disappointed when we don't throw a ton of technology out at it. I say this often, go solve your problem first before you ever come close to throwing technology at it to solve it. Technology is going to be there to help you. It's going to enable you.
Yeah, technology isn't going to solve it. If you don't know what you're looking for to begin with, then the technology, you're just going to buy a high-priced item and your financing is going to be pissed at you later.
Exactly. They're not going to be mad when you go to renew and it's another upsell. Anyway, when we think about how we get some of these pieces of data all through this, again, we go back to, we hear so heavily on go-to-market teams. Marketing is very focused on this. Sales is very focused on this. Make the customer journey delightful. It should feel seamless. We should feel that the minute that they log a demo request on your website and any sort of automated system, whether it be Drift or Chili Pipe or however the ways that we're routing these things and grabbing that data, even from our marketing automation platforms, how does that seamlessly get over to our inbound rep? And how does that seamlessly get answered in a very short period of time? SLAs of, internally, we try to keep it to an hour, less than that most of the time. How do we make sure that we do all this? And then all of a sudden we have to hand it to a sales associate or an AE. Then we close the deal. Then we close it or hand it off to a CSM. That customer journey has to be delightful. No questions asked. How do we on the operation side enable that? And I think this is what Alan's getting to. How do we make sure that we track that data in a meaningful way? We've talked about this candidly. One of the worst things you can ever have happen to you is by accident or just by poor data quality, your AE or your SDR sends an email to somebody and says, would love to talk to you about our solution. And they respond, I've been a customer for 6 months. Yeah. And like Ben's like rolling his eyes. We've felt the pain of this before in different situations. How do we mobilize around that and prevent that? And of course, a lot of it comes down to the data, but the data journey itself.
Yeah, I think that goes back to data integrity, right? That goes back to that difference between a sales ops and a sales manager role. How are you tracking customers? How are you tracking their journey through your entire process from close one to hand off to success after implementation? If you don't have that and all that's not tied back into your MOPS strategy and your plans there, I mean, you're gonna step in it and you're gonna piss off some existing clients.
Yeah, it's not gonna be fun. And I think that's where, again, when we think about it, let's start 10,000 foot and get granular. When we think about it from the 10,000 foot, what's the best thing for our customer? Easy, seamless, nice customer journey, right? What does that mean on the operation side? And again, we talk about this often. There's a lot of unsung heroes on it that people are behind the scenes. There's wizardry behind it. Pun on Wizard of Ops, of course. But
I'll be honest. I signed all our automated emails at Test Optics, magical cloud guy. So anything that's coming out from our internal processes,
there you go,
the magic cloud guy.
That's perfect. Perfect segue. And Ben didn't even know this because I'm looking at the questions come through on our live feed.
That's because I dropped my phone a minute ago. If you missed that huge crash.
Yep. So perfect question. We talk about operations all the time. This is Shops Talk. Ben, your title, Strategic Systems Manager. It actually doesn't have operations in it, but tell me why it's important.
So I stole this from a good friend of mine, Brent Booth, who was actually my first boss in the Salesforce ecosystem. huge congratulations to Brian. He was just promoted to VP recently. Actually, I think like 2 days ago. He called me like 30 seconds before this call started, before this webinar started. I got the idea from him. Strategic systems. My role is managing basically any of the important ones. All the enablement teams, so SalesLoft, Chili Piper, Salesforce, anything that lives inside it, and then like Gmail and I guess Google Workspace is called now. Yeah, whatever the new name is. It's making sure that all of those function correctly and are integrated with each other.
Yeah. You can't, we talk about this often with all of our customers and everybody that we talk to in the community. Your data is the most important thing, especially right now. Like, we're in a weird time and we are making business decisions on a constant basis based on what? Our data. Where does our data come from? Strategic systems. Yep. So it's not a far-fetched idea to think that even if you're not technically an ops person, we've had other conversations off of this. What does RevOps even mean? Is it sales ops? Is it RevOps? Is it part of marketing ops, customer success ops? There's trends that are changing right now, and we're debunking a lot of those on a lot of these shows like this. But we're talking about that. But I don't want to make a pound my fist on the desk statement and say you have to be in operations to be strategic as part of this.
Yeah, I mean, if it makes you feel better, I roll up into the COO. So like, if that helps.
Yep.
Merry Christmas, but
I love it. Question again from I'm not sure exactly what it's from, but what is your take on the difference between RevOps and SalesOps? Wow, too easy. We were just talking about that. Are they the same thing? Does SalesOps roll into RevOps? Does it matter on company size and industry? Ooh, unpack it.
I mean, I think it's like you said a minute ago, it's a weird world right now. Mm-hmm. I think holistically, SalesOps rolls into RevOps. Yeah. That's how I would feel. RevOps is that overarching, structure basically of SalesOps, MOps, success ops, everything rolling in there, and that's that one group that manages all that data and all those processes to make your company work successfully.
I mean, let's take a step back real quick and just remember, these aren't titles of roles that have been around for 30 or 40 years. I mean, we've seen statistics show on LinkedIn, there's a 400% increase on revenue operations titles over the last 2 years. Like, of course there is. So this is something new and emerging. So when you ask the question, what's the difference and what does it mean? Spoiler alert, we're still figuring it out.
I mean, you're not even figuring it out. I mean, you kind of get to make it up as you go at this point.
Yeah. Well, and again, kind of going back to just a candid conversation from this morning with one of our customers, talking with Alex at Sendoso. You have two verticals you can go down, or two routes really you can go. You can either start to build out a RevOps team based off of independent groups. So you can have a RevOps leader, and then you have people underneath that are a sales ops person, a marketing ops person, a customer success ops person. Good strategy. Again, to your point, kind of depends on where you are in a company. Are you 50 people? Or are you 500?
Yeah, I mean, I think size matters. So it's something to keep in mind as you're building these teams and building these organizations. I think how fast are you looking to scale? Like, if you guys are small and nimble, it can be an individual contributor, but as you grow, you're going to need to be able to specialize a little bit more in your needs.
Absolutely. Well, I think here's where that scale and size matters. You see it more often in some of the larger upper mid-market enterprise companies when they're building a revenue operations team. They are starting to look at, let's do it by principle or by discipline. I talk about being data junkies all the time. Greg Myers, one of our good friends, Wizard of Ops, huge data guy. And when I look at their team and how they're structured at Redis, he is 100% solely focused on how we actually look at the data, what story does it tell us. More importantly than that, the structure of these RevOps teams now, you're seeing someone be fully focused on sales and enablement, like we talked about earlier. Somebody being fully focused on reporting and analytics. Greg, great job. Somebody being fully focused on strategic systems. And so, does one size fit all? Absolutely not. I think hopefully you're making a business decision based off the structure of your business and what fits best for that. So great questions. We'll take one more of these questions. We got to do rapid fire with Ben too to make sure that he gets a little bit more of some fun things on the edge of his seat. But from Dan Grossberg, he is listening to me, so good. Now he gets to call us out. How do you manage projects versus one-off tasks? Project planning makes sense for larger initiatives, but how do you tackle the marketing manager that is asking for 3 new fields on the lead object so it can sync with the marketing automation platform? Ooh, lots to unpack there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm a big fan of native functionality with Salesforce. I'm a big fan of cases in general, so I tend to stick very closely to that. And I break it down by type, so project, support, enhancement. And then I break it down by division as well internally. So sales, ops, success, marketing, however your teams are broken up. And then basically it gets in line. They can set their own priority. I review the priorities based on other needs and requests from the company at whole there. And then if it's not, if something outweighs it, I'm sorry, like you're getting in line.
Yeah. I think the prioritization, to Ben's point, I think we always have to look at it holistically and say, what's going to be best for the company? How are we going to, is this change that I'm going to spend a lot of time making going to move the needle for our business? And so you're always going to have prioritization conversations. I think the one thing that I've learned in my past, Ben and I have empathized over many tacos on this. It's going to depend on how transparent you are with the rest of your organization. Every RevOps person we talk to now, whether they be in WizOps or Sonar or SaaS Optics, be transparent with the rest of your org, because half the time marketing doesn't know what you're working on for sales, and sales doesn't know what you're working on for finance. And so cases are a great way for this.
Yeah, and I mean not being transparent, it's going to bite you in the ass. I mean, like if I think we go and talk about this when we did our RevOps discussion with Snowforce. It's a lot of the times MOPS doesn't, or marketing doesn't understand how sales qualifies things. Sales doesn't understand how marketing qualifies things. And the same applies against requests they're submitting, right? Sales has no idea what marketing's making, what kind of requests marketing's making. Success isn't really concerned about what marketing's doing, so they're going to put those requests in and they're going to expect them to get done. And as an ops professional, it's kind of your job to prioritize accordingly and put the company's needs at the front.
Absolutely. You're never, I'm not going to say never, but you're never going to get in trouble when you put the company first and when you're being transparent about your needs. And that's all the way down to very small tactical changes. Yes, I've been asked to update a pick list value. Is that the most pressing thing for our company right now? We're a day before a board meeting and I've got to go get some reports done. I'm going to say that you probably need to work on the reporting instead of the pick list value. But again, being transparent with your team and what you're working on goes so far. And it's a certain level of empathy. People realize that, like, oh, wow, I had no clue you were working on board reports. Get the pick list value later. That's totally fine.
I mean, if they check your calendar, I'm sure it would have been very clear.
If you're good at calendar management, that's probably going to be another topic that we have one day. So wrapping up, we got about 7 or 8 more minutes. We want to hear a couple more questions. If you have anything else, please jump into Shops Talk, the channel on our Wizard of Ops Slack community, and please ask us. Rapid fire, you ready for this? No? Okay. Favorite TV show right now? He's acting surprised. He knew these questions were coming.
I've got a 16-month-old, so we're watching CoComelon a lot right now.
Frank doesn't watch CoComelon, so I can't say that I know exactly what that is. But
I'd be concerned if you did. I'll be honest.
Fair. So I got beat up for this question last time because I didn't articulate it correctly. Favorite Dorito? Cooler Ranch, nacho cheese.
You mean Cool Ranch?
Cool Ranch. That's cooler too. They change the bag every once in a while. Blue, red, and somebody came in real fast with purple. Actually, one of my favorites.
Purple's a spicy one, right?
Yeah, sweet and spicy one. Sweet and spicy chili. I love it. Drink of choice.
Goose Island root beer.
Ooh, good. You get a good on tap root beer.
Yes.
Too good.
I mean, here local. I mean, was it Red Hair?
Yeah.
In Marietta, they've got a great root beer they make there, and I'm pretty sure they do it in pony kegs. I like root beer, so that's where we're going with this. But they got a great pony keg for it.
I love it. And for everybody that wants to visit Atlanta, 2021 is going to be your year. So,
yeah, we'll get drinks at Red Hair, and then we'll go to Heirloom Barbecue.
Ooh, and then we'll take a nap.
They've got tacos at Heirloom too.
Too easy on the next question. Favorite tacos?
Honestly, probably right now the pork belly from Bar Taco. Hillary, who's kind of running all this for us, disagrees with me, but I'm the fat one, so I'm going to take my opinion.
All right. Hot topic. We talked about it last time with Monis. How do you prefer your leftover pizza?
I mean, like cold or like what are you talking about here?
How do you prepare it?
I got into a lot of trouble with my in-laws 2 weeks ago because I just left the pizza on the counter and I just picked a piece off when I was hungry to eat it.
Yeah. Okay. So, pro tip. Refrigerate it. We don't want any diseases.
It's 2 hours later. It's fine.
I know. If you were reheating it, what is your method of reheat? Or do you go?
I'll just pull out the fridge and eat it.
See, I lose these battles. I am. The cards are stacked against me in this. And so, finally, with every one of our Shops Talks questions, if you could go back in time,
I can't hear you.
If you could go back in time and tell Ben Fuller from 5 or 10 years ago a piece of advice in operations, what would it be?
Ben Fuller 5 or 10 years ago was valeting cars in a parking lot in Salt Lake City. Honestly, just keep doing what you're doing. You're on a good path. You're gonna, I don't think it's fair to change how I've done things. but I let him stick that course. I have a good life. I'm happy with what I'm doing right now.
Good. I think one of the things to point out too, and you gave Brent a shout out. He was one of your first managers. He got you into the Salesforce world.
Brent was my, he's probably texting me or calling me right now. But yeah, Brent gave me that shot, and that was, I guess I kind of correlate a lot with you and Mark, and there was that shot. I'm eternally grateful to him.
It takes a curious mind, and I tell people all the time, be willing to ask questions, get feedback, stub your toe, because you're going to be doing that constant loop a lot. But joining communities like Wizard of Ops, finding a good mentor like Brent, do that. It's going to be so impactful for how you do your career now. We've got a few more minutes left.
Cool. I need a soundbite real fast for this.
Soundbite, hit it.
Emily, I'm sorry I forgot our anniversary this morning. This is me apologizing publicly. I love you very much. Thank you.
For the record, Emily, I was shaming him about this too. So we've been giving him a lot. Dan Crowsford, oh no. So we will see if we can find a hotel room probably a bit later. He might not get back in the house. The doors might be locked. So couple last questions. As a new ops guy, how do you make sure you're not getting too into the weeds on the data versus not getting deep enough? Great question.
I think you're I'm not a huge data guy. Let me clear this. Let me lay this out there real fast. I think you're always too deep in the weeds on data sometimes. Yeah. But I don't know the answer to that one.
Yeah.
I think it depends on what your actual roles and responsibilities are. How much should you be in the data? What kind of require what stage is your company in, and what are you actually trying to solve for? And I think that'll determine how deep you need to be.
Yeah. I think the way I would look at that, your data is going to tell your story. Focus on it. If you're ever thinking, should I spend more time in it? The answer is probably yes. I don't know. And listen to your leaders, the folks that are asking questions about that data. They have a job to do. That VP of sales has to figure out, are we hitting our number? Are we not? Are we hiring next quarter because we're exceeding that number? Are we not? It's October. Spoiler alert. Everybody's in 2021 planning. How do you make any planning decisions without data?
Everyone's in 2021 planning, and they're trying to spend what budget they have right now.
Yeah, absolutely they are. And so when you think about it in that context, I would always err on the side of focus heavier on data. But it's a good point because you can get lost in it. Yeah. We say the analogy all the time. You can't see the forest through the trees. You want to be able to zoom out often. So one thing that I've learned, took 10 plus years to figure it out, try not to spend more than about an hour at a time in a spreadsheet or running reports or doing anything on the analytics side, because you'll start to get in your own head about it and you'll realize the formula you're putting together might not be the best. Take a break.
And at a certain point you have to figure out how much Advil are you putting in your body? Where does your Advil budget go when you're spending so much time looking at data?
That's exactly it. And last question, as a funny one, Jonathan Morgan jumping in. How cold are those tacos right now? They're probably pretty cold.
I'm concerned. I'll be honest.
I'm concerned as well. That's it, guys. We're wrapping up. Appreciate everybody jumping on. We're so excited. Shop Talk again 2 weeks from now. The lovely Jen Whalen joined us directly from Salesforce. I'm excited. Jen's excited. He's eating tacos.
They're very cold.
They're very cold. There you go, Jonathan. Again, we can't thank you all enough for jumping in. We don't get to have this show without you jumping in and asking us questions. Hopefully you enjoyed some of the feedback, some of the insights. Any last words?
No.
No.
Have a good night.
Thanks again, everyone. Talk soon. Have a great rest of your week. See you again in 2 weeks. Good job, man.
I'm still going to eat this taco.
You definitely got to eat the taco. You definitely got to eat the taco. So pretty good.